we're here at Hamburger Mary's in West Hollywood, California. You can hear some noise in the background. Obviously, we're at Hamburger Mary's, so they're cooking and the ice machine going on. So if you see me chewing on a veggie burger during the shoot, don't worry. Great place, by the way. If you're ever in West Hollywood, check out Hamburger Mary's. Interesting subject today. You notice I'm sitting here naked. When I say naked, I mean I have no dogs, no cats, no snakes, no birds. I wanted to have a serious conversation today with two friends of mine, Gabriella and Melissa. And we're going to talk about animal communication. Are there such a thing as an animal psychic? We're going to find out if animals can really be healed by someone. We're going to talk about all this. And what I did is normally I ask the questions, but I know a lot of people out there say, come on, Warren, animal psychics, animal communicators, are they charlatans or not? So what I did is I asked you, my audience, to send me questions, and I'm going to ask Gabriella and I'm going to ask Melissa these questions. If you want my opinion about whether or not pet psychics, pet healers, pet communicators are real, you have to wait to the end of the segment. All right, Melissa, Gabrielle, first of all, welcome. Glad to have you here on our brand new website.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a couple of questions, and these are all brought from my listeners, so if they're stupid, don't blame me, okay? The first one I want to ask is, let me ask you, Melissa, what is an animal communicator?
Well, there's a lot of ways to explain it, but I always say to people, I can actually talk to your dog. Now, I believe you talk to dogs when you're doing behavioral training, but this is where I actually focus in on a dog, and they don't have to be in front of me, or a cat or a snake or whatever, and they show me images. They can show me how they're feeling, they can show me if there's any physical issues within them, and I can actually try to communicate to their owners what they need, what they want, and what they're thinking.
Well, so let me ask, this is the question that really comes up then. For example, a lot of people say, okay, well, if I'm an animal psychic or an animal communicator and I'm sitting down with my dog Henry, and I say, Henry, how are you feeling today? Is Henry saying, hey, Melissa, I'm feeling real good? Or are you getting picture type images and translating those into human terms?
It depends on the dog. Some dogs or cats actually have vocabulary. It's unbelievable. I mean, you'll tune in and like one of my dogs, I have 8 of my own dogs, so I do a lot of communicating. But one of them can actually sit there and have a conversation with me, and he speaks just like you and I speak. Other animals will show me images, or they'll show me feelings. And I also always have to tell people, you know, when I'm communicating with your dog, a lot of times a communicator is only hearing what the dog wants you to hear. So if I say to them, like a lot of people will ask me, oh, what does my dog want to eat? Well, if I ask the dog's going to tell me steak or pizza or McDonald's.
So dogs lie.
They lie. Oh yeah, they lie. Well, they tell you what they want. It's not really lying, it's what they want. But psychically, I can get what a dog needs. So that's kind of the difference between communication and psychic work, because people will say, well, if you're a psychic, do you read my dog's future? I'm like, no, I don't know what he's going to be doing. Or like a guess. He's going to go to the bathroom or whatever. You know, I don't know. But psychically, I can see what they actually do need. But communicating-wise, they're just telling me what they want.
What they want.
And that's why I always say when people call me for training issues, I'm like, I am not a trainer. I could tell your dog not to dig holes. That doesn't mean that he's not going to dig holes. He might go, yeah, okay, whatever.
Send them to me.
Exactly.
Let me ask you a question, Gabrielle. As you're an animal communicator, but you're also a healer. And so a lot of the work that you do has to do with health issues that an animal may have. And do you ever find yourself in a situation where people say, no, you're wrong. My dog doesn't have that. My cat doesn't have that. Or my dog isn't depressed, or my horse is not. Do you ever find that people don't want to accept the fact that you really know what their dog is feeling and really know some health issues?
You know, it's a great question, actually. This is a smart question. Actually,
I didn't ask you, my listeners.
I know, well, your listeners are smart. I've actually never had that experience because this is my full-time profession and I have solid credibility. The people that come to me are really open to listening about what needs to happen in order to help their pet. And what they don't realize is that they're also helping besides helping their animal companion, they're actually helping themselves because they're interconnected, they're a family. So a lot of the health issues that the animals have that I work with end up being health issues that the people have too.
So it could be an environmental scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've never had someone say no, they're open to the possibilities, and eventually they see that everything that we've talked about is actually what's going on.
Okay, so here's the question that a lot of people ask. Telepathy. Explain it to me.
Oof, that's a loaded question. To explain telepathy, I guess the way I get it, because I'm fairly newer at this. Gabby's been doing it for about 10 years. I've been doing it for about 2. So I'm a rookie. So for me, telepathy is when I connect with an animal that's not here, and I actually get the feelings and emotions, and it's just, for me, it's flashes, almost like a movie. Like I'll just see things or feel things, and sometimes I'll actually, like, we were working on a horse together, and the night before we were going to work on this horse, I didn't know what was wrong with her, but I was just laying in bed and thinking about the horse. Well, my sciatic nerve went out. Do you remember that?
That's right.
And I literally could not walk. I just thought my sciatic nerve went out. So the next day I'm like getting out of the car and I'm walking.
She's calling me and letting me know like something's really wrong, and I was kind of like,
So we get to go work on the horse, and sure enough, same hip. It wasn't her sciatic nerve, but she was having issues and nerve
it was
problems.
nerve damage.
It was nerve damage. So I was
From a
picking
racehorse.
up on that. And that is my best, you probably will explain it a different way, but that's how I could explain it. I pick up on what that animal is feeling or seeing, and I'm not even around them, so I'm just picking up on that.
So on that question, Gabrielle, on telepathy, is it something you're born with, or is it the concept that most people just are not able to tune in to that vibe, to tune into that ability? I mean, is everyone born with the ability to communicate with other species, or is it just something that you were lucky enough to be born with and the rest of people don't have?
Take it.
well, it's a great question, and you're absolutely right. Everyone is inherently born with ability to connect with other species. What happens is you start to grow up, and society has you in a box about what's possible and what's not. And as you grow up, you're told, oh, that's so cute, but that really doesn't happen. You know, parents have different ways of saying things, or society has different ways of telling you things aren't really true. And you begin to be disconnected. But a lot of the children that I work with, I'd say their abilities are off the charts, because they haven't learned that they can't. So I think there are differences, for example, in intensity. Someone like myself or Melissa who focuses in on it, it's like a muscle. Work it out, it gets strong. Don't, it gets weaker. But there are different levels of talent. Some have more talent in it than others, but everybody has the ability.
Like me saying that I've only been doing it for 2 years. I've been doing it my whole life, but I never thought that it was communicating. I mean, people would say to me all the time, like I would sit in a corner even as a child, I'd rather be around animals than people, always.
Well, and here's a perfect example of it. There was an interview that she went to, that she actually just told me this morning over breakfast, and they basically brought in, they were lying to her. It was a very closed environment where we're not going to tell you anything, and you have to just tell us everything about the dog. And she looked at the dog, and the dog was this happy, well-adjusted pup, and
kissing me, and
and there is nothing to tell. And what people have to realize is that yes, you don't go to someone like us and tell the whole story, because we're trying to get information that is subtle, but it is an exchange of energy. This is not magic. It's quantum physics.
I was just going to say that, because a lot of people have this interpretation of the whole psychic thing, and I had it when I was younger also, the feeling that it's phony, it's not real. And I got to be honest with you too, and I talked about this before, I've worked with animal psychics all over the world.
And you've talked to us directly about
exactly,
it.
and some of them, I just remember, let me give you a prime example. I was doing a television show, I believe it was the Today Show, and they had an animal psychic on as well, and we were talking back and forth. And in the green room, the animal psychic is asking the dog that she was going to be talking to, she asked the owner, give me something about the dog's background. And the owner said, well, I picked him up as a stray and he was limping. So they get on the air and the psychic turns and says to either Katie Couric or Matt Lauer, says, well, I can tell you right off the bat, looking at this dog, he's had a really tough start in life. No kidding, he had a tough. He's found as a stray and he's limping. Doesn't take a psychic to figure that out. So my question to you is, do you find those people that are just going to say, wow, that's what I thought? Maybe an owner of a dog or a guardian of a cat, after you've communicated with their pet, say, I thought that. Maybe they had that ability, and they just needed you to kind of bring it out.
Well, and that's what I tell every client that I work with. After working with me, you're going to be better able to understand and communicate with your animal companion, and it's going to transform your relationship. Because what I do creates that energy around quantum physics, and it literally wakes up their own ability, and they'll email me or call me and they say, you're right, I'm beginning to look at my dog, cat, bird, whatever it is they're working with, and say, I get more of what they're trying to tell me. And I said, yeah, I don't want to make you dependent on me for the rest of your life.
And
I want to give you the tools to...
These animals, usually the behavioral issues, the people have the same behavioral issues. So you start reading the dog or the cat.
The neurotic dog and the neurotic
person. Some people, like you said this earlier, Lauren, you have these psychic powers.
And you do. I mean,
he does.
People have been saying that for years, but my ability is to... I just go in there and I read everything.
Right.
And not only the dog, I read the mother, the father, the grandmother living upstairs,
environment,
the cat next door.
toys,
that's all energy.
And then I look at them and I say to myself, you know what? If I have a neurotic dog and I spend 20 minutes with the owners, I can tell you exactly why that dog is neurotic or depressed. That's another thing. Do you come across animals that are depressed? Maybe they don't really love the people they live with.
That's rare.
Yes. I mean, I've come across that a few times, like where the dog just is like, please get me out of this situation, or the horse.
And we know one horse in particular where he just looks at us every time like, help, get me out of here. He's not being abused. He just really doesn't like who's hanging around him.
And he's thankful for being loved, but there's more to life. And a lot of times animals are in situations, that's why when I rescue animals and I foster animals, which I do often, I am super choosy about the home that animal's gonna go to. Because they could stay in my house and be whoever they are. All my animals are whoever they are, I don't care. Some of them like toys, some of them like food, some of them like to dig, and they just do what they do. I accept that. And I feel like when I'm finding the right home for an animal, the person has to have the same type of energy as the dog or cat or whatever it is. And that's a big issue. I mean, when people call me and tell me about their dog's running away or running out the front door, I always say, can you just send me a picture and let me connect with the dog? Because usually I just want to get off the phone with the people because their energy is so crazy and I already know the answer. But, you know, a lot of times I feel like I'm giving therapy to the person because I'm trying to calm them down so that they can actually live in harmony with this animal, because they're driving the animal
kind of
nuts.
like social work.
It's like social work.
It has its roots. It's actually a phrase that I coin in my work. It's emotional literacy for animals, or ELA. Like you were just saying, you know, you're looking at the whole situation because you understand behavior. You also understand the species that you're dealing with, which is very important. And the individual breeds, just say it's dogs, you understand what motivates, and then you've got to look at the humans. And a lot of times, like emotional literacy was coined in the 90s by Claude Steiner. And it's used for people, so that you can better navigate through emotions. But it turns it inward so that the person understands their own emotions, can better listen, and empathize with the other person, and then navigate whatever's happening. Well, I get people to not only do that with people, but to do that with animals, because there's an energetic to it. And that's what you're talking about, is evaluating the whole scenario, because that is emotional literacy. It's exactly, and it has its roots in therapy.
And respecting each other. Yeah, therapy.
But now as a healer, it's a little bit different, because let's say, for example, someone comes to you with a dog. Let's just use a dog, for example. Saint Bernard, 9 months old, for whatever reason stopped eating or doesn't like his food anymore. And they've been to the veterinarian, and the veterinarian says, well, it's just a stage. But you as a healer might say, you know, maybe it's not just a stage. Maybe there's an upset in his stomach. How does that work? I mean, when you sit down with this Saint Bernard and you try to figure out, well, you don't try to figure it out, obviously there's a communication going on. Does he say to you, listen, Gabriella, my belly hurts?
It's exactly as Melissa described it. Some animals have extensive human vocabulary and they use it, just like some people are really smart and some people aren't so. Just like animals, all species. Why are you looking at me when you say it? Because I know you know this. I know you know. And some give you pictures. And sometimes if they can't give me a picture of what's wrong, because they don't know what's wrong within themselves, I'll get an extreme nausea.
You'll feel it, like the hip.
So you'll feel.
Sometimes. It depends. But not to my detriment. There's a lot of healers and psychics and animal communicators that make a big drama over, oh my God, I feel so sick. Not helpful for anybody, by the way, and not helpful for yourself, in addition, when you're trying to do the work. Whatever comes in that I'm allowed to feel is not to harm me, but that's the only way the animal's able to communicate what he's feeling. And it's a sensation, like what happened with Melissa and the sciatica. It was a sensation, and the minute we got to the horse and we knew what we were dealing with, It went away.
We
The
both
horse
went,
let go.
Oh.
Okay, but so now,
Okay.
so now the Saint Bernard, however, either by visual or whatever, lets you know that there's something wrong. How does the healing take place?
Well, the energetic healing that I do, I'll start with that. I still don't understand it completely. There are folks that can understand, that explain it through quantum physics, like Walter Russell did. People can look him up on Wikipedia. He was back in the 1920s. There's actually a science. There is an energetic flow to everything. Somehow I am able to focus energy that's positive, that helps transform either emotional or physical situations. In my particular practice, I do 3 sessions. Depending on how bad it is, it's either 1 in 3 days or it's 1 a week for 3 weeks. When an animal's going through such an extreme situation like you're talking about, when a dog stops eating, all 3 of us know, not good. That's like one of the worst signs you can see. So you start to think of big things being wrong. And that's where I have to really focus on listening and not my own, it's probably cancer, it's this, it's that, you know, I've got to just calm down and listen to what I'm being given. The sessions help transform the situation, but then I will also look psychically for the deficiencies or what the dog may need to help heal the gut. So I also have studied herbs, you know, and I'm well-rounded. So understanding behavior, understanding different species, different breeds, and then also looking at what herbs could correspond. In a dog's particular case, I would look towards slippery elm root, which will help get rid of the nausea naturally. I would also look at colostrum to help rebuild the gut. 75% of the immune system's in the gut. And I would also probably go for a product called Polysil, which is humic acid. It detoxes on the cellular level while remineralizing the cell.
So it's a
I'll go at it
combination.
3 ways.
It's the animal letting you know, however, that there's something wrong. Then it's taking basically you're taking a holistic approach.
Correct.
You're healing with energy, but at the same time you're also taking into consideration supplementation
Yes.
or the right vitamins.
Mind, body, spirit.
All together.
They have to work together. It's a 3-legged stool, and if it isn't working properly, the stool's going to fall down.
Okay, so Melissa, to you, what are some of the more common problems? In other words, the average person's calling you to communicate with their pet because of it's peeing on the floor, it's doesn't like their new husband.
Yes. Actually, a lot of people call me after their pets have passed, and they have messages that they want to give their pets.
So it's possible to communicate even after they've moved on?
Yes.
Interesting.
Everything's energy, so I can connect to their energy once they've moved on. And a lot of times the animals will stay around their owners because usually the animals are okay with leaving, the owners aren't okay with letting them go. I'm sure you know that. From having dogs, I don't care if you've had them for a year, if you've had them for 20 years, every time they go, it's too short of a time. So that's one of the, I'd say, the number one reason.
Let me just interrupt you for a second and tell you an interesting story about that. You know, I've been on the radio for many, many years, and I get tremendous stories from people all over the world. And some of the stories I get, and when I talk about them, people are ready to put me away. Imagine that. But I've had people say to me, listen, my dog died last year. There was a fire in my house. The dog was gone. But I heard the dog barking. That's what woke me up and got me out of the house in time. Or my cat hasn't lived here for 10 years. Then one day my wife got sick and I heard the meow and I know that was the meow of my cat. So what you said is very true, that the animals may pass on physically.
Body, right.
But spirit and
soul.
Yeah, this is you have to understand. I grew up in the Bronx.
I get it.
So to me, aromatherapy was Lysol.
I get it.
Okay?
My husband's from Brooklyn. He's like, who did I marry?
Lysol.
This is a whole new experience for me. This is you know, even though I've experienced this for years and years and years, it's very difficult.
Right.
It's very difficult for the average. Now I accept it only because my face is in it all the time.
Right. So you hear all these experiences.
I hear the good, the bad, and the ugly.
But how many times have in your life, when an animal has passed, have you thought you tripped over, like they're still sitting in their spot, or you feel like
I
you
smell
see
them.
Right.
Yes.
That's because they're still there.
Did I say that on camera? But I do. I smell dogs that I don't have anymore.
We knew we would get him.
It's true, and there's many animals that I've had over the years, you know. So
you know, like you still feel them. You know, I had a Cocker Spaniel that used to like to sleep with his head on my knee, and I would still feel that when he passed, and I'm like, oh, Stanley, you know, and so they are still around.
Yeah.
So that's one of the most common things. People will call me, well, I dreamed that my dog was still here or my cat was still here. I felt my cat. Are they really here? And I'm like, yeah, they really are. And I do believe that they can come back in another body. I do believe they reincarnate, which is a whole nother conversation. But I do believe that. I do believe that 2 of my dogs have come back to me.
You know, it's interesting because as much work as I do with animals, you know, in Europe I did a lot of work with wolves, and I'm Jewish, and my Hebrew name is Wolf, which is kind of interesting.
Of course it would be. Oh my God.
Which is, I mean, I never thought of it until recently, but I've always felt more comfortable. And you talk about being comfortable with animals, and I write about this in my autobiography. I grew up in a typical Long Island household where there was always 20 people in the house. Anyone who lived in Brooklyn or the Bronx came to our house for the weekend.
Right.
Okay? So there were always 15 people there, and there was a little creek behind my parents' house. And in that creek were muskrats and real rats and ducks, God, every kind of animal. And that was my comfort zone. I mean, if I ever got a D in school, which was 90% of the time, if I ever got kicked out of school, which was 90% of the time, that's where I would be. There was a certain solace. And you know, I never, now that I'm thinking about it, because we're talking, maybe I was communicating back then.
Oh, you push.
Or maybe I didn't realize what I was doing. Maybe, but they were making me feel comfortable.
They understood you and accepted you, and you felt it. It's just like, you know, 2 people can walk into a room with a dog, and the dog will react negatively to somebody because that person usually has some kind of weird judgment going on, and the other person who's just open-hearted, the dog is completely relaxed with and comes right up to and hi, and not an aggressive bone in their body. There's a subtle energy, call it what you will, whether it's body movement that's, you know, telegraphing it, or tone of voice, it's all energy.
You know, it's interesting because what you just said is there are certain dogs and certain cats, when people come into the house, will gravitate to that person. Or the cat will gravitate to that person. And people always just assume that that's because the dog or cat likes that person. Very often is the dog or cat is aware of that person's negative feelings, and I believe goes over there to win over.
They're scared,
those feelings.
Depends on the animal, and we were just in Montana, and we were at a friend's house, and they have 2 fairly feral cats that live in the house. They really don't like to be around people. They both came out, and they both were around me, and my friend, who's a real mountain man, Mike, looks down, and he's very Irish, and he goes, "Oh, you got the gift, Lassie. I thought you were lying, but you got the gift." And the cat came over, not because they liked me, but because they understood the first thing out of it that I've been hearing. Well, the cat said, or I got the image that she didn't feel pretty. And I looked at Mike and I said, "What's up with the I don't feel pretty thing?" And both their mouths drop, and they went, "Oh, we think she's an ugly creature." And I said, "Do you say that out loud?" And they said, "Yes." And I said, "You know, there's actually a study that National Geographic did in 2007 called Animal Minds, and the scientists proved that animals have a lot more human language than we give them credit for."
You say it about fat.
Absolutely.
Because you always say, don't call your animals fat, right?
Don't call your animals chubby in front of them.
Right, they know.
They know. And, you know, Mike's...
Or don't say you're stupid, or don't say...
It's
ugly.
just like a child. You wouldn't say that. Well, people do. But
although I joke, but the biggest lie in the world is really telling your dog you'll be right back.
We talked about that. I never bothered.
See, I lie to my dog. I'll be right back. I know I'm gone for 6 hours.
Right.
You know, they almost kind of look at me and say, "Yeah, we know."
Whatever. Well, they know by how you dress. I mean, people tell me this all the time that don't believe in communication. But they'll go, "It's weird because when I'm getting ready for work, they know my work clothes. Or if I'm getting ready and putting on makeup."
Grab the keys, you grab the purse, you grab the jacket, you grab the...
They understand.
Or I would go someplace that Jen used to come with me because he was really good with healing my big black shepherd before he passed. And he would know when he couldn't go someplace with me. And he would go to his bed and the look of, "You rat, I'm gonna get you later." And he never did. He was never vindictive that way. But when I came home, it was a whole appeasement process of, now we'll have our time, we'll go for our hike, it's all right.
Let's get to this pet psychic thing for a second. Melissa, you were talking about this earlier.
I see the wheels turning, Warren.
I'm just sitting here figuring out how to kind of interpret their questions. So you're not going to, if I say to you, "Listen, I'm in West Los Angeles today, West Hollywood today at Hamburger Mary's, and my dogs are in Sedona, Arizona right now. Do you know what my dogs are going to do tomorrow?" I mean, do you know, can you say to me, Warren, your dog, he's 6 years old now, he's only going to live till 11?
You know, I usually can pick up on
something
ages.
you wouldn't want to say or
yeah,
tell somebody.
I mean, people will ask me about when it's time for their dogs to pass, and you know, sometimes I can tune right into it, and especially if a dog is ill or something like that, I'll go, you know, I don't feel like he's going to be here a lot longer, but you might get 1 or 2 years out of him. I mean, I always want them to live longer because I know how hard it is to let them go.
Even though you might know different, you want to put a positive spin on it.
You will always want to put a positive spin on it, because I think people should enjoy every day of life with those dogs. Don't think about it. My dad does it. He has a St. Bernard, so he knows that probably the life expectancy is 9 or 10 years. And we'll be sitting in the car, and he's Cuban, so he has this funny accent. And we'll be sitting there, and he'll go, "Oh, poor buddy." And I'm like, "Poor buddy? This dog like sleeps on you." "What do you mean, poor buddy?" He goes, "He's only gonna live 7 more years," or you know, he'll say something like that. I'm like, "Dad, stop! You have 7 great years of life."
And there's an arrogance that goes with people that say absolutely they know.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
there is leeway for change because nothing is set. Things can change because
and
there
miracles
is
happen.
free, absolutely, and there's free will. And so it's very hard when she'll get the information that the person needs to get in that moment.
Right.
She's not in control of what she's going to get. It's what the person needs.
But you as a healer have to be a little bit more honest with the person. If you find something wrong with their animal, it's not something you, maybe it is, I mean.
It depends on the situation. I actually had one situation. I'm normally pretty honest in as gentle and emotionally literate way as I possibly can. Especially if I'm dealing with a direct person that I can, but I was dealing with a very unstable individual and their animal companion of over 20 years. The person was saying to me, they're gonna be with me a long time. And I went to go just say yes, you know, without trying to do a read. And the animal looked at me and I went, "Oh no." And I tried to figure out a way to tell the person, and they started tears and, "I can't hear this," you know, and I went, "Okay." And unfortunately, that animal passed within 6 months.
You know, from a behavioral standpoint, a lot of different species of animals, in fact, most species of animals, when they're going to die, they wander off.
Yeah, some do.
And so my question is, for either one of you, do animals know when they're going to die?
I think that they are okay with it. So they do have an idea that they're dying. Some of them want to go. Gabby and I worked on a horse for quite a while that wanted to go so badly, but the people that owned her could not let her go for different reasons.
Because it was about public perception.
And so it was a rescue organization, and because they have a lot of donations, people just kept saying, "No, try something else, try something else." So they had to keep this horse alive, and they did. They did everything you could possibly imagine. And
she had her good days and her bad days.
It was
whenever
up and down.
we came, the horse would stare at us like, "Tell him it's done." And
she wanted to go. I mean, she wanted to go. And so we talked to one of the people that worked there, and we said, "Look, you know, we could keep doing this and we could keep working on her, and she will feel better for a few hours. She will feel better here and there.
She's humoring us.
But she wants to go." And they go, "Yeah, we know." I mean, she finally did pass, actually, while you were away. And we were glad that she passed. We'll miss her and all that, but she wanted to go.
The pain is gone.
And she wanted to go. The pain's gone. Yeah.
Because it was just so horrific to watch.
So they usually stay for us, you know?
This is probably the most important question, okay? And I want to kind of semi-end and let you talk to me about it. How do people know, in fact, if they're dealing with someone legitimate like yourselves, or if, I got to be honest with you, I went online yesterday and I Googled animal communicators, and I must have seen 3,000 animals. And you know, I've been doing this is not my first rodeo, guys. So when I first started, there might have been 2, 3, maybe in the country. Why is it, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there, because the pet industry is a very successful industry, $60 billion.
Yeah.
First of all, how does a person live with themselves lying to someone? That's number one. But number two, how does a person feel confident that when they hire or go to a whatever it is, a communicator, a healer, how do they know? Is there a way they can know?
I think, you know, it's a great question, and I'm glad you bring it up, because, you know, there isn't any kind of school, you know, or accreditation doctors get or psychologists get, so it is a tough one. I will tell you though, I met with a lawyer, we were walking, and I told the lawyer what I did, entertainment lawyer. There's a lot of charlatans in your area of work. And I was like, ain't that the pot calling the kettle black, you know? So it's in every profession. And I think, you know...
Except radio hosts.
Except radio hosts, absolutely. And I think what you have to do as an individual is you have to really do your homework. And part of doing your homework is looking at the person's site, hate to get a little esoteric here, but follow your gut. Yeah. Now, there are different types of psychics, healers, animal communicators out there, and it's different strokes for different folks. There are people at all different levels. I'm not the perfect healer for everybody, and Melissa's not the perfect animal communicator for everybody or psychic. But everybody finds who they need, because there's some lessons that got to be learned too. So sometimes when you end up in a bad situation, it's because you needed to learn to listen and research. But you look for testimonials. Right. You look for consistency in their message. You try to get referrals.
You look in their eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
we look in their eyes.
And I think referrals and looking at them and just feel, like you said, feeling who to go with is really the important thing.
And call them. I mean, they're a professional. Like, you want someone who's full-time, not somebody who works a day job and then, you know, you want somebody who is...
Selling your shoes in the morning and analyzing your pen at night.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going to need someone committed to what they do, their profession. And also... Yes, they don't have a lot of time to give because the professional ones that are good are busy. But send them an email. Give them a quick call, knowing that they'll probably be a 5-minute talk because it's a profession, they have to put a limit on it. But take the time to see how you feel when you communicate and look into their eyes with their pictures. Very important.
Do you both... I want to tell you how I became a believer, not only in animal psychics, but in
he just said that on camera.
Human psychics. But there's a reason. When we
first met him, he wasn't so sure.
I had to analyze this a lot. And there was a specific time in my life that changed my mind. But both of you have the ability with humans as well? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, because I work with both people and animals.
Let me give you, I have always been a major skeptic and would never go to a psychic. It's just something that, you know, a blue-collar Long Island guy doesn't go to a psychic, okay? You go to, you know, you go hang out by fire trucks and get a bloody nose. You don't go to a psychic. When my wife passed away in 1990, she passed away at a very young age. She was 36 years old and died from melanoma. And she was diagnosed in November, and she was gone by May. So it happened very quickly. And it just sent me in a tailspin. And right after she died, like a month later, one of the books we had written together, the cat book, How to Get Your Cat to Do What You Want, was going to be out. And at that time, there was no such thing as media tours. I mean, not satellite tours. She'd go to every city. So I go to 20, 30 cities promoting the book. So I was out promoting this book, How to Get Your Cat to Do What You Want, and I wound up at Century City Hotel. Century City Hotel, one of the hotels there. And I was out during the day doing, you know, book signings at Barnes & Noble or whatever, and I came back that evening and there was a message on my phone from a woman that I had never heard of. Her name kind of sounded like Cher. So I thought maybe Cher was calling, because I was doing a lot of celebrity tests at the time. And it wasn't. But I called her back. And she started talking to me and said, listen, I know you just lost your wife. I got your name from someone in New York. And I've listened to you, and I want to talk to you. I'm saying, all right, how do I get out of this call now? You know, get me out. She spent an hour and a half on the phone with me and just totally freaked me out. I mean, to the point where she was telling me things that I barely remembered, that I mean, names that only me and my wife would have known, or things that me and my wife would have known. And then after we're getting ready to hang up, she said to me, Warren, let's have lunch tomorrow. I'd love to really see you in person. I couldn't do it. Never called her back, never responded to her again. It just freaked me out. You ever find that people, when they ask for psychic knowledge, maybe they really don't want to know that it's real? They're kind of afraid of the fact that it is real?
Yeah, sometimes. I dealt with the situation recently where this woman had to give away her dog, and she wanted me to connect with the dog. No, she didn't tell me she gave away the dog. She just said my last dog. So I thought the dog had passed, and when I started to connect with the dog, I went, oh my God, no, the dog's still here. So I started to give her the information. I mean, the dog was not happy. And the dog was actually kind of angry that she gave him away, and nothing about it was good. And the woman just looked at me, and her eyes welled up with tears, and she was really upset. And she just kept going, no, I mean, I don't think that that's what happened. And she was kind of disagreeing with me, and I could tell she was disagreeing with me because she felt bad. It was guilt.
Complete guilt.
So I just said, I finally went, all right, this is going nowhere. And I went, all right, well, you know what? Why don't you think of some other questions and email me back? And I never heard from her. And I think it's kind of that. I mean, people a lot of times don't want to know the truth, which I don't think is the case with you. It just was so much information.
It was too close and way too much.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not something that you sought. I think it happened.
Right.
I'm a believer. I'm a believer
huge.
that everything happens for a reason, and you attract to you what you need. In a situation like that, it was meant to happen to give you information that you needed to hear to open you up to the possibilities. But
I'm
beyond
thinking about going back to a psychic.
Yeah.
Now, I am.
But beyond that, you did not ask for it, and so to offer even more, it was inappropriate for you. And you felt like, no, I don't want to go.
Maybe it was the wrong time.
Wrong time, wrong place. In my particular case, I'm a healer. Every part of everything that I write down is healer before it. My psychic friends get upset with me, not Melissa, because Melissa understands why I do it. But they'll say, you're so psychic, why don't you just admit it? And I said, because if I lead with the psychic foot, then it no longer is about them taking responsibility for where they are and what they want to do with themselves differently to make their lives better. They're looking for a psychic reading.
Quick answers.
Tell me. And the biggest transformations don't happen in that context from my experience. That's just my experience. It happens with others differently. But for me, that kind of shields me from those that have, like with what Melissa had to deal with.
Here's the toughest question you're going to answer. I mean, it really is a tough question, then we're going to end. But this is really a tough one. If there are, in fact, people out there with psychic abilities, are they, in fact, able to find lost pets? And if, in fact, they are, why aren't there more people doing it or using it to that benefit?
I help people a lot. Do you do that too? Or?
Sometimes. Professionals like you, yes, but I think you're asking about the individual person that has the natural ability, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think what would happen in my case, certainly, if it were Jen who would disappear, I would need to go to Melissa because it would be too emotionally close. The brain is two compartments, really. Half of it's rational, half of it's emotional under optimal circumstances. Right. The minute something emotional happens, it's called emotional reaction. The logic part goes away, and you're in full-blown, and you can't see straight.
Right. When Jen got sick, you called me and you said,
he was dying.
She said, what's going
on? And I called
on?
her because I couldn't get past my, don't you leave me.
So for a lost pet, as an individual, it's even with me. You know, people say, Warren, your dogs must be like Rin Tin Tin and Lassie. My dogs are not like Rin Tin. I like to negotiate with my dogs. I like my dogs to, when I say sit, look at me, say, you talking to me? I like that once in a while.
Right.
So it's interesting that for someone who loses a pet, perhaps the best thing to do is to contact someone like
for
yourself.
help.
Right, for help.
After they've researched them.
We've both worked with lost pets. I mean,
Yep.
I recently had a woman who had gotten readings from me before call me the other day. She goes, I don't have a scheduled reading. My cat's gone. Can you help me? I went, of course. Let's just, okay. So I tuned into the cat and I went, all right, I'm seeing, and I just told her what the cat showed me. The cat jumped over, she has like a little balcony with lattice. I saw her walking down a weird skinny path and there was bushes on one side. And I felt like she wasn't too far from home, but she went in a small window, like a garage window. But it was like a basement. Now, it looked very East Coast to me and I knew she lived on the West Coast, like those those, and she goes, well, all right. And she lives by the beach. Anyway, she started to trace her steps and she started to knock on people's doors and it was getting darker and she was getting nervous, and sure enough, they saw the skinny path that I saw and they went, oh my God, that's exactly what she described. And there was this little window and she knocked on the people's door and the cat was there. So, I mean, I was just retracing steps and getting visual.
Getting visuals about it.
And the dog showed you, remember that lost dog that showed you the oranges?
It was the weirdest thing. This guy called me and he just pulled these two St. Bernards from a shelter and his gardeners left the door open and the St. Bernards took off. He found one, couldn't find the other. Calls me in a panic. He's like, I'm sick. They don't even know me. They don't know their names. They don't know the area. And I'm thinking, and he also lived in Long Beach, and I said to the dog, show me a street sign. I don't know what would make me think this dog could read a street sign, you know? So I'm going, show me a street sign. And I kept telling the guy, I don't think the dog is far, and he's showing me an orange. Is there an Orange Grove Boulevard or an Orange Boulevard? And he's like, well, yeah, there's an orange something like 2 miles away. I go, I don't think he's that far, but go look. So this poor guy's driving up and down Orange Boulevard or whatever, looking for this dog, can't find him. About an hour goes by, and meanwhile I called the police station and said, look, if anybody sees a Saint Bernard, I mean, this is a 200-pound dog, you know? And so the police actually had called me back, and they go, oh, there's an apartment. They told me the number and the street. It was only 2 houses away from him. So when I called him back, he goes, oh my God, that's like my neighbor. The dog was sitting under an orange tree.
That's amazing. It's, you know.
But this is when you say the logic and the psychic, because logical, Melissa is telling the dog to read. Well, I guess not too logical.
It's the context.
But
you don't have a context for their visual.
You know. So I'm going, what do you see? You know, and he's saying orange, and it was so funny.
It's, you know, first of all, let me thank the two of you, Melissa and Gabriella, for being here. And for those people out there, let me just say this, okay? There's a lot of skeptics out there, and I was one of them for many years, but I honestly believe that every human being has a sixth sense. I believe it's inhibited by the majority of people. I believe all animals are psychic. I believe all animals have the ability to communicate. I just don't think that enough people take the time to spend with them. Now, I talk about this on the radio show all the time. I don't psychically communicate with my animals. I do, but I would never admit that to you guys. But what I do is I sit down with them and I talk to them every single day. Literally have conversations, politics, religion, family problems, whatever. I sit and I talk to them every day. And whatever you want to call it, I could be depressed, I could be anxious, I could be stressed. By talking to my animals, their energy always makes me feel better. And I think that's important for people to know, that if you spend time just getting rid of this great ego that we all have, and sit on the floor and spend time looking in the eyes of your cat, your dog, or horse, whatever type of animal you have, you'll find that you're probably an animal communicator also. May not be able to do it as well with your own pet, but you're probably an animal communicator. And by the way, Melissa and Gabriella, good friends of mine. I believe in what they do. We're going to put up their websites. So for those people that might want to set up an appointment, you can do it by phone, or that might want to set up an appointment, or just find out more information, please contact them. And so the next time you look at your dog and his 2 back legs are crossed, chances are, folks, he has to go out and pee. Thank you.